Hey everyone, Tyler with Meeple Mountain here, bringing you another board game review and learn to play from our partners at Inside Up Games. Their new title, The Quick and the Undead, is just released, and we can't wait to show you all the exciting action that you can have in their new Wild West zombie apocalypse themed game. In this game, you will be playing as a leader of a gang of outlaws looking to stake your claim in a town overrun by the undead. You'll be competing with rival gangs to claim the various buildings in this town, defeat the undead hordes that patrol the streets and these very buildings that you want, all to gain the most notoriety and go down as the most famous gang in this Wild West undead apocalypse. So grab your 6-shooters and your 10-gallon hat, partner. We're going zombie wrangling. The Quick and the Undead is a worker placement game for 2 to 6 players, in which each of you will work as a gang leader, sending your outlaws, or your workers, out into the various spaces on the board to complete actions and gain passive income bonuses as well. But be careful, this game is not friendly at all. You're not going to be able to share most of these spaces with rival outlaws without having a little heated action, a duel even. You may find that your workers are getting pushed out of the spaces you want to go to, or even killed and sent to Boot Hill, where they will turn into more of the undead scourge that plagues this town. There are 7 spaces that your workers can go to on the board, as well as an 8th space where you will attempt to recruit new workers to refill your ranks as you lose them, unfortunately, to either the army of the undead or fellow rival gangs. This game has a quick pace to it where you're constantly cycling through your workers. All of these actions will drive you to fight the undead, defeat them to claim their notoriety bonus that's shown in the top left of the card, all to cleanse the undead out of this town so that you can ultimately take over some of these incredible buildings that are in the town that will provide notoriety at the end of the game, as well as passive bonuses the longer that you hold them. But be careful, there are undead that live in these buildings as well, so you'll need to drive them out. And just having a building doesn't really make it yours. As always, rivals can choose to come here as well and duel you for control of these buildings, so be prepared to put up a good fight to hold down the things you care most about in this town, in the Quick and the Undead. Turns play very quickly. They're broken into a series of days that consists of 3 rounds of play, in which players will hide and simultaneously select a location on their die. These locations will allow you to place your workers at the corresponding numbered spot. But be careful. If, for instance, you and a rival share the same space, most of the time you will have to have a duel, in which case one of you will choose to either leave, or you'll have to fight it out to the death, and one of you will be sent to Boot Hill to become a corpse. Rounds will play quickly like this until all of the zombies in town, so in the buildings and those patrolling the street itself, are defeated. This will trigger high noon, in which case you'll have one more round of play, placing an additional worker to see if you can position yourself as best you're able to win. After that, the game is over, and the player with the most notoriety tokens, as well as undefeated undead points, and buildings that you control, you'll add those up, and whoever has the most notoriety is the most famous gang in this town and is the winner. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of nuance and a little bit of skill that goes into how you choose where to put your workers. So let's talk a little bit more in detail about that. The location spaces that you send your workers to in the Quick and the Undead are broken into 2 sections. A top section which will allow you to take an action with your worker, and a bottom that provides income or options for income. For instance, if I was to go to this location here, I'm allowed to hunt an undead anywhere on the board, so being the street or the buildings, and then I have a choice of taking a coin, which I could use to buy buildings, or a bullet that I could use to refill one of my spent casings on my player sheet. This will allow me to have more options and more likelihood of success when I do, in fact, go hunting. The last form of resource that you can gain is notoriety in the form of tokens. Again, remember, this notoriety counts to see who is the ultimate victor at the end of the game. You'll want to make sure you balance your choices of actions and resource gathering correctly so that you have a good balance of in-game points as well as the resources that you need to actually succeed throughout the game. Be careful though, a lot of these spaces will allow you to steal resources from other players, so even though you might have some notoriety tokens or coins, they're not always 100% safe from your opponents. This game is very take that, as rival outlaw gangs would be. Let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the buildings in The Quick and the Undead. The number of buildings that will be out in the town varies based on player count, but effectively all of their layout is the same. On the top left-hand side of a building, you'll see the cost that you'll need to own that building. You would pay that in coins and could then occupy that building, assuming there are no undead, keeping that building from being quite as habitable as you would like. There also indicates the number of notoriety that you will have if you control that building at the end of the game. On the left, there is a bonus of some form that would explain to you, what that building will do for you. For instance, here, you can exchange a currency, a coin, for either a bullet or a notoriety. This gives you a little flexibility in your income. All of these vary quite greatly and offer a lot of asymmetry and strategic options as you build your playstyle and how you want to win. The first person to own a building also gets the bonus that's indicated on the space. So for instance, the building here gets a coin. So if I was to come here with blue, blue would get a coin discount. So really owning this building only costs a single coin instead of two, which is nice. Now, as I mentioned before, buildings are not safe. Just because I have an individual here and I own this building, there are some drawbacks. One, I'm losing a worker that I may need later to place so that I'm not falling behind on actions. But other players can also choose to buy this building and come in and potentially fight me for control. Whenever there's a worker in a space occupying a building, the cost to own that building is cut in half. So for instance, here it would still be just a coin. And red could potentially come in here and attempt to duel me for control of this building. Now, I do have the choice to just leave if I really wanted to, but then I would be giving away control of this valuable building. So oftentimes you'll find players coming in to duel you repeatedly for control of these buildings. So just because you have a building doesn't mean it's going to be yours at the end of the game. You better stock up on bullets and have some countermeasures prepared to repel these would-be invaders that would want to take what is rightfully yours. Now, let's say that my duel here to control the grocery store didn't go well for me. Well, if I died, I would go to Boot Hill, and I would get a notoriety for doing so, which is a victory point, so that's not bad. I also would get to come back as an undead from the top of this stack here. That undead can go anywhere I want. It can go in the street or one of the buildings that are here. If I go into the street, no one can purchase any more buildings until the street is clear of undead again. I could, though, and would, because I'm spiteful, put this undead here in the building that I just was killed from, because at the end of the game, if there's an undead in a building that you control, you don't get to score your victory points off of it until all the undead are gone. So this becomes a fun little take that element to the game where even dying is not necessarily bad, and you can use it to either mess with your opponents or even position your person, your corpse, in such a way that you could claim the victory points from that. So in this case, because this guy is worth a victory point, if I was able to hunt this undead, I could claim this card for the end of the game as well. So my one worker dying could net me 2 victory points if I play it right. There's a lot of neat strategies in this game that really dying's not always the worst option. Let's talk a little more in detail about dueling and hunting undead, as both of those will use your targeting boards and your bullets, but do function a little bit differently. If 2 or more players are ever in the same place or fighting over control of a building, they will have a duel. A duel lasts only 1 round, and is as simple as players rolling their dice and looking to see if they have a dice roll that matches where they have a full bullet, not a casing, on their targeting board. If both players score a hit, for instance in this case a 7 and a 2, the player with the highest value hit will win. They will survive, the other player will die. If they score the exact same value, for instance both players rolled a 7 that is a hit, they will both die. Any players who survive this single round of a duel, say they both missed, will continue on and will complete their actions as normal, or may, in fact, share a space in some ways. That doesn't happen very often, but it can. Hunting zombies, however, is a bit different. Let's say, for instance, I was the blue player and wanted to hunt this particular zombie. He's very valuable. He's worth 6 notoriety at the end of the game, but only can be hit on a 6 targeting space. So let's say, hopefully, I had a bullet loaded into my 6 targeting space. You can continue to hunt undead as many rounds as you want as long as you don't roll the same number twice. So let's say, for instance, I rolled a 7. Even if this is a full bullet, and it doesn't match his targeting number, this bullet is spent. But when hunting undead, the best thing to do is remove that, so I know that if I roll another 7, I have to stop hunting this undead. I can continue to roll. Man, I'm doing really well. If I get a critical, that's great. But I can continue to roll until I roll another 7, in which case I've rolled the same number twice in the same hunt, and I must stop. I've lost my action. The only way to defeat this undead would be to roll specifically a 6 and have a bullet in that area, in which case this bullet would be spent and I would get to claim this card for end of game scoring. Hunting undead can be quite tricky, as some of them oftentimes only have a single sweet spot, so you'll need to make sure that you come prepared with the right bullet and hope that the dice are kind to you. And that is the quick in the undead. I hope you enjoyed getting a look at a little bit of how the gameplay works, and I hope it got you excited to get your hands on a copy of this game and give it a try. This is a very intricate and unique worker placement game that's probably different from most that you have in your collection. But what did I think about it? Well, you may know Inside Up Games. They've worked on things like Gorius Maximus, Vault Assault, and several other titles, The Summit probably being one of the most popular ones that you may have heard of. But I had never played an Inside Up Games game before, and so I was really excited to get my hands on this. I always like to get a feel for different companies, different publishers, and how they work and interact. They always have a different feel to them, and it's fun to get a taste for that. What struck me positively about The Quick and the Undead was that it's different. I love worker placement games, and usually they are a little bit more calm, or if there's player interaction, it's usually more overt, like, oh, I took your space, or I took resources that you may have needed for another mission or objective or thing, but usually the player interaction is softer. The Quick and the Undead is not that way. It leans into direct player interaction. There is a lot of take that element in this game, from dueling for control of a space or a building, so straight up just murdering your opponent's worker when they're in your way, or stealing resources, things that you may have thought you had locked down or secure, or placing undead back on buildings that you'd cleared out at the last minute so you lose victory points at the end of the game. There is a lot of player interaction in this game that is very hostile and very take that. I mean, your rival gangs. You don't expect them to be friendly. It is a really, really fun game. I was really positively impressed with how of a unique feel this has for a worker placement game. Now, there are a few things to take note of. One, this is a pretty dice-heavy game. All of your duels, all of your hunts, everything is dice-based, so there is that. And again, if you're not a dice lover, this may be something that you don't enjoy. There's always going to be a little bit of luck faceted into a dice-based game, and so that may not be your cup of tea. The most notable thing to say is if you don't like hostile, take-that style games where you feel like you're being targeted or attacked, this is probably not a title that you'll enjoy. It is very hostile. You can be focused pretty effectively in this game, and it is great. I think it adds a really fun balancing aspect to the game, but I understand that that's not for everyone. So just keep that in mind as you explore this title. The only thing else that I'll add on the negative or iffy side is the rulebook was difficult, at least for me, to fully comprehend at a quick glance through. I had to really take some time and read through it again and experience the game to kind of get a full feel for how everything was supposed to function. That may just be me. It may not. I just felt that the rulebook had a few rough edges. It could have used a little more polish. Now, on the positive side, they think they did a great job on the rulebook with a wonderful player aid on the back that walks through all the buildings. There's a nice quick reference guide there, so questions that you have in-game can be answered very, very quickly. Speaking of quickly, the game itself runs pretty quickly. Most of our games were getting done in about 45 to 50 minutes, but I could see that you could even cut that down further if players are really quick. And this game is said to run for about 30 to 60 minutes, so that's nice. It's a really digestible time frame. It's easy to teach once you know how everything functions. It's quick to set up and get into. Honestly, this game is a breeze to get to the table and play. The fact that you can play from 1 to 6 players, I believe, is a positive. You have a lot of flexibility in the game. It seems to thrive regardless of how you play. I was also attracted to this title just by the art. I really love the grunge look that you have, and the art on the Undead itself is just really engaging and looks great. I think this game gets really high marks for the theme and the look of the game. So, if you are looking for a worker placement game that's maybe a little different than what you have in your collection, if you're looking for something in the theme of Wild West zombie apocalypse, I don't know if there's any Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare fans out there, but this game really, really feels like an homage to that title. It has a great feel, an engaging theme and vibe to it, and I think you'll really enjoy having it in your collection, as I know I will enjoy having it in mine. So, I would say that this game earns a 7 out of 10 in my category for a worker placement game. I think it's something that you should definitely check out if you're interested, if this looked engaging to you. There's lots of strategies and ways that you can come out on top, and it's really, really fun if you have a good group of buddies that don't mind picking on each other a little bit. So, with that said, this is Tyler with Meeple Mountain. I hope you've enjoyed our walkthrough of The Quick and the Undead, and I hope it's encouraged you to check this awesome title out as well. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Check out some of our other Meeple Mountain content. I promise you won't be disappointed. This is Tyler Williams, signing off.